with my mother's parents in South Omaha until my brother was born, which was December 28th of 1926, which is almost 2 years later. Then we then moved to a house on 27th and Emmett. It was 2615 Emmett Street where we lived uh, until quite a while after the war. Uh, Went to Lothrop grade school with, weren't a lot of Jewish kids in our neighborhood, but there were a few. In my class in Lothrop school, it just so happened there were four Jewish kids, including me. Three of us named Cohen, all spelt different. Kohn, or maybe En, I don't remember, but it was Koh. And Cohn, me with, which is En, and a fella who, Eddie Rosenthal, got killed in airplane thing in World War II. The other two Cohens were girls. A girl named Pauline Cohen, who became Pauline Handelman, and a girl named Harriet Cohen, who I don't know whatever happened to her, but I know both have since passed away. So of the four, I'm the only one left. Anyway, we grew up in that neighborhood, did what most kids did in those days. Played ball all day and just had a nice childhood with my folks. My dad in those days worked for the government, the federal government. That's a civil service employee. And my mother did like all the women did in those days, stayed home and took care of the house and the kids. My dad worked his regular job, plus he had two or three side jobs. He always did to make a living and support us, and we had a pretty good childhood, I think. We enjoyed it. We had, of course, I was the oldest grandchild, so I was pretty well doted on both sides of the family, because we had my mother's parents who lived in South Omaha, so we were pretty familiar and went to South Omaha a lot, attended the South Omaha Shield and everything as kids. And my mother's parents were, and my mother was born in Poland, came here when she was 5. So my mother's parents were Polish Jews, immigrated in 1907 to Omaha. And they had, of course, my mother had 2 brothers and a sister, of which my mother passed away December 25th of last year, 2000, and was 98 at the time of her death. My grandmother lived to be 93. And there were my 2 uncles, my mother's brothers, who were younger than her, lived to be in their 80s. And my aunt still lives here, lives at Remington Heights home, and is 91. We lived on Emmett Street till quite a while after the war. I went to Central High. My brother went to North High School. We was bar mitzvah. I'm kind of skipping around, but that's as it comes to me. I was bar mitzvah at the old Capullo show on 24th and Nicholas. And I think my brother were bar mitzvah in the same show, but I don't remember that for sure, but I think it was the same show. My dad's parents came here, my dad was born in New Jersey, and his parents came to this country both very young. They met in New York and married in the New York City area. My dad was born in Paterson, New Jersey. So anyway, my grandfather Cohen was in the laundry business and had a laundry on the top floor, or an upper floor anyway, of the Millard Hotel, which was on 13th Street, as I remember, I think between Capitol and Dodge, or Dodge and Douglas. I don't remember for sure, but was in that area somewhere. Anyway, it burned down in the early 30s, early to middle 30s. It was a big fire at that time. Firemen got killed there. It was a bad situation. Anyway, he stayed in the laundry business till he retired from it. And my grandmother, like everybody else, she stayed home, was active in the community. My grandmother Cohen was active in the community, I can remember seeing her name as a charter member of the old Chesed Shalema Son, coming, I think, between 19th and 20th, in that area right there, where they had the old Jewish funeral home. And anyway, she was active in a number of Jewish organizations, and she died in 1937, because she died with it. The only reason I remember it was like 3 months before my bar mitzvah, which was in December of 37. Went to Central High and graduated from Central High. And from Central went down to Lincoln, kind of in the front door and out the back, the University of Nebraska. Went there, graduated from Central in 3.5 years because I was in a hurry for what reason, I don't know. And anyway, went to Lincoln to school went there in September, and went into the Army that was in September 42, went in the Army in March of 43. Was in the Army for 34 months, 27 months in the Pacific. And
before we get into your time in the Army, Bill, tell me about your mother's two brothers. What were their names?
Her older brother, who was born in the old country like she was. My mother was 5 when they came to this country, and the next to her was my Uncle Harry. He must have been like a little over 3 years old, because they were less than 2 years apart when they came to this country. And he came here, and I don't think, I know they went to, both my mother and my uncle, I know, went through 8th grade at, I think it was a school called South Central in South Omaha. It was on 25th and L in those days. Later became the Polish Home, and now it's something else, that building. Anyhow, that was my Uncle Harry. He and my mother finished 8th grade. I don't know if my Uncle Harry went to high school or not, because they had to work to help the family, the immigrants. And I don't know if he became an upholsterer and worked as an upholsterer for many years, and then retired from the Union Pacific Railroad. My Uncle Jaime, which was the first one born in this country, they lived in South Omaha, and he went to grade school there too, at South Central, and he went to South High. Whether he was able to graduate or not, I don't know. But anyway, I know he went to South High and he worked as a salesman for years, and then he worked for the Union Pacific too, and then moved to California, where my Uncle Harry had married my Aunt Leah. Her name was Leah, but we all called her Lee, who was originally from New Orleans, but her family came to Omaha, and her maiden name was Goldberg, and they had 3 kids. And my Uncle Jaime, anyway, after the war, sometime I don't remember exactly the year, he moved to California and was in a number of businesses out there. Wound up retired from, he had a liquor store in someplace near Arcadia, California. I don't know, Temple City, someplace. I don't know exactly the town. And he married and had 2 children. And
How about your father's side of the family?
my dad's side, there was, well, they were all born in a couple different towns in New Jersey. They lived in Patterson and Passaic, New Jersey. And my dad was the oldest. Then had Uncle Abe was next to my dad. He died comparatively young. Died in like 1936, I think it was, because he died like a year before my grandmother, Cohen, and he was when he died, operated a grocery store on 16th and Binney in North Omaha. He was married to my Aunt Rose. They didn't have any children. She was, her maiden name was Shapiro, was originally from Chugwater, Wyoming. I didn't know any Jews came from Chugwater, Wyoming, but that's where she came from, which apparently was near Cheyenne. And next to him was my Uncle George. And George, after graduating from high school, I think he went to Tech. Only I'm not sure it was called Tech then when he went to high school, but he graduated from Tech and moved to New York pretty young and worked for the post office, postal service. He retired. When he retired, he had worked for the postal department at LaGuardia Field for a number of years, and he just died about 2 or 3 weeks ago. He had to be 92 or 93 years old. And the youngest brother was Louis Cohen, who lived most of after his service. He graduated from Tech too. Worked in Omaha. Worked with my grandfather in the laundry business for a number of years. Then moved to Sioux City. Worked up there for his uncle, my great uncle, named Max Kaplan, who had a wholesale grocery business in Sioux City. My uncle worked there, and he went in the Army too, and was a paratrooper in World War II. Got wounded during the Battle of the Bulge at Bastogne, and when he came out of the service, he went back to Sioux City and married up there. Married Lucille Baker, and they operated a grocery store for a number of years. And when they retired, they moved to Omaha. They didn't have any children together, but my uncle helped raise my Aunt Lucille's son, Larry Trottenberg. and I think he now lives in St. Louis area. Uh, and there was another brother who never grew to adulthood, but I don't know very much about him except that I think I was told that he had was born with cerebral palsy, and you know, in those days I guess they just didn't talk about it, and he didn't live very long anyway. He was not an infant when he died, but he was not very old.
How did your mother and dad meet, Bill?
You want to know the truth? I'm not sure. I think it was at a dance. uh, the stories that I heard, you know, kind of conflicted over the years and got but and apparently when they were young, and you know, my mother lived in South Omaha and my dad and his family lived in North Omaha. Most of the years that I remember growing up as a kid, they lived in a big house on 21st and Burdette, kind of catty corner from what are now the boys club there. And in those years was a big ball field, and there was apartments. A lot of Jewish people lived around there. And anyway, that's where they lived and grew up. And you know, my dad, like I said, worked for the government, and then before the war, well, for a number of years he was a reserve officer in the Army Finance Fund, and then in like 1941, I think, just before Pearl Harbor, he went on active duty and stayed in the service then till had to be 1955 or 56 on active duty, and retired from the Army on a disability thing, and he died in July of 1967. Anyhow, I'm trying to think of what else I can say.
Do you remember working at all when you were in grade school and then into high school?
Oh yeah, we worked different things as a kid in school and going to high school, and I can remember working at there was like a dime store, only it wasn't called a dime store, called Neisner's on 16th Street between Farnham and Harney. And I worked there after school and holidays and what have you. First I went to work there, you know, as a kid going to high school, selling shoes. And apparently I wasn't that great a shoe salesman, because then I went to work in the stock room there, you know. I guess I was better throwing boxes around than I was selling shoes.
Have any idea what kind of money you were making then?
Oh, I think 35 cents an hour or something like that, yeah. I think when I worked a full week, which had to be only like spring vacation or usually Christmas vacation. Yeah, I think I worked a full week, and I don't know how many hours that was, but it was quite a few hours. You'd wind up with $16 or $17. You know.
Which was a lot of money.
Which was, oh my goodness, it kept me kept me in spending money, you know, clear into spring from Christmas time.
How'd you get back and forth from work to home?
Streetcar, mostly the streetcar. And it's just like when we lived on Emma Street too, you know, we went to Tomatoro at the old. The Tomatoro was on the third floor of the Jewish Community Center on 20th and Dodge, and we went to when we first started. They had a bus that the Jewish community owned, and it was for transporting kids to Tamatora and Sunday school and that sort of thing. So when we first went, the bus used to pick us up and take us back after after class. And I can remember one time somehow I missed the bus after class. I'm sure I got doing something in the gym or something. I was someplace I wasn't supposed to be. Anyway, I missed the bus. And it was then my Uncle Abe, who was the next oldest to my father, worked in a deep rock filling station. He was the manager of the station. It was on 25th and Farnham. And I don't know how old I was, I suppose 7 or 8. Anyway, I walked from the center because I didn't have any money, and there was no bus, so I walked from the center up to that filling station to get a nickel from him, so I could catch a streetcar on 24th and Farnham, and then it'd take us to 24th and Emmett, and get home. I don't think you'd let a kid that old do that today for sure.
Would this bus pick you up and take you to your home?
Yeah, pick us up right at home and take us to the home. But I think that's not where there was an accident on the bus, and I think that the bus stopped after that. So we used to ride the streetcar, and some days after Tamatora, instead of going back home, because the folks would, go visiting. So they would either be a lot of times they'd be in my grandparents in South Omaha, or my grandparents on 21st and Burdett. So we'd take the streetcar, from Tamatora to either South Omaha or to 21st and Burdett and go to their home and come home with my folks. My dad had, ever since I could remember, he had a car. First it was a Model T, and that I can remember, and I can remember that thing was, the way it was explained to me, had, was no fuel pump, so the gas went gravity from the gas tank to the engine. So sometimes if you couldn't make it up the hill without killing the engine, you had to turn the car around, back up the hill so the gas would feed to the engine. Anyway, we had a Model T when I was little, and then we went to a 31 Pontiac, which we thought were really classy when we got that car. And from that car, we had a 37 Plymouth that we kept until the war. My dad always had a car, and we'd come up, we'd take the streetcar wherever they were, and come home with them. So it worked out good. I can remember in the 30s going to Tamatora, and there was a streetcar strike, and they turned the streetcar over right on 20th and Dodge, right by the Jewish Community Center, and there was tear gas all around, and it was
Made the headlines.
it made the headlines, and the kids came out of it. We came out of Tamatora with our eyes. Of course, they wouldn't let us out until all the action was done out there. But it was just one of the things you remember as a kid growing up. But mostly we're just involved in sports. I dealt my folks a fit about going to Tamatora.
Do you remember any of the instructors?
The instructors, oh yeah, I remember a number of them. There was, of course, Judah Wolfson was, everybody remembers Judah Wolfson that's anywhere near my age, remembers him, and he was a nice man. Got a little upset with me when it came time for my bar mitzvah, though. I can remember he came time for my bar mitzvah, and he wanted me to give a speech, and I didn't want to give a speech. I said, I'm not going to give a speech. And he said to me, I'd even like you to give the speech in Yiddish. Well, I could then, because of my grandparents, I could speak some Yiddish, but, I wasn't all that proficient, and still am not, but I can understand it. I said, I'm not going to speak in Yiddish. I'm not going to give a speech. I'm not going to do that. So he got upset with me, called my dad, and my dad, I can remember, told him, please, Mr. Wilson, tickled Pinky's going to be bar mitzvah. Let's don't push this. And anyhow, it was Mr. Wilson. Mr. Katz, I can remember, was the principal. And I can't remember his first name, and I don't remember if he had any family here, but he was the principal, and I can remember he had a finger, and I don't, the index finger, the second finger, it was misshapen. The fingernail somehow grew over the end of the finger, and as we were kids, boys who really didn't want to be where we were in the first place, so we'd act up from time to time. And he'd poke you in the head with that finger. Oh, it would hurt. Oh, it was terrible. It really would hurt. And then we had I can remember a lady, I think her name was Mrs. Ariely. I think that was the right name. And nice lady. And of course, Mr. Bluck, but he was there, but I never had him as a teacher. He was there. That much I know. And but that's all the teachers I can remember. The others, kind of came and went, but those were there pretty regular basis for quite a while.
Were you able to learn everything you needed for your bar mitzvah at Talmud Torah?
Yeah, pretty much. Except, like I say, Mr. Wilson got so upset with me, he didn't attend the bar mitzvah, so I had a great uncle by the name of Jake Shapiro, my Uncle Jacob Shapiro, who was learned, and so he helped through it on the bima, but I'm sure I made mistakes, but I'm also sure we did it and got through it, and everything was fine.
Tell me about, did you have a party or anything? Was there a dinner?
Well, after the bar mitzvah, which of course was on a Saturday, after the bar mitzvah came to, had family and some close friends of my parents and stuff to the house. Today you'd call it a reception. In those years, they came over and ate. I don't know what you called it. It really wasn't a party or a reception, but it was. There was quite a number of people came to the house and had I think probably cold cuts and I don't know what else, but I don't remember what else. But that's pretty much what it was.
Do you have any recollection of any gifts you got for your bar mitzvah?
Oh yeah, I got a couple good gifts. I got one from my parents. Gave me a nice watch. Kept that thing until I went in the army, and got stolen from me in the army. Somebody stole it out of my footlocker in the army, and I got a new bike. Nobody ever had a new bike. My Aunt Rose, which was my Uncle Abe, my dad's brother, was his widow, and my Uncle Louis and my grandfather Cohen bought me a bike. It was a new bicycle. Oh, that was something. That was really, I went everywhere on that bike, and kept that bike until, I think while I went in the army, I think I gave it to my cousin Wayne Siegel, who was, quite a bit younger than me. So I think that's where the bike wound up. I'm not sure. I got to remember to ask Wayne that.
Bill, can you tell me about any Jewish holidays at home growing up?
Mostly for the holidays like Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, those holidays. My mother was I wouldn't want to say she was a very religious person, but she was a religious person, kept a kosher home, and wouldn't ride on Yom Tov, and a lot of times wouldn't ride on Shabbos. But anyway, so we used to go to my grandmother's in South Omaha because they lived on 26th and K, and the South Omaha Shul was on 25th and J. So could walk over there, it's only a couple blocks. So a lot of those holidays we used to go there, and I don't remember the service too well, but I remember the kids running around shooting paper wads and kind of staying outside. You weren't allowed to be running in and out, but as long as you stayed out, wasn't bothering the the daveners, the people inside. Nobody bothered you too much. So usually that's where we went. And for Pesach, I can remember, because it's soon going to be Pesach, we used to go to South Omaha for the Seders, because my mother would help my grandmother with the whole family used to, in those days, get together for, of course, for my brother and I were the only two grandchildren for, a number of years. My cousin Wayne Siegel is he was the next one, and he's like 7 years younger than me. So for quite a while, we're the only kids at the Seder. But anyway, my mother used to go and help my grandmother because of the size of the family, and it was no easy task, cleaning the house you had a coal furnace, and of course changing all the dishes and all the pots and pans, and the houses didn't have all the easy access to all the dishes and the cookware and everything that they have today. So there was a lot of work involved. So she used to go help there. So we used to, mostly for the major holidays, as kids, until we got bigger, we would go to South Omaha. Then when we got bigger, a lot of times they came to our house, or we went to my grandparents and Cohen's, or they came to our house, or whatever. So it was pretty much a family-oriented thing. In those years, we had a number of cousins and that sort of thing that lived in Omaha that we were close to. So my parents were close to, and as a result, we were. So it was pretty much, things were pretty much family-oriented. And like I said, our neighborhood really wasn't a Jewish neighborhood, so we kind of went outside the neighborhood for Yom Tov and for Yiddishkeit.
What do you remember of 24th Street?
Oh, I go to 24th Street. I remember going with my parents for almost everything, and my grandfather Cohen almost every Sunday morning would bring either to our house, or we would go over there for lox and bagel and a roll called Zemmel, which I think must have graduated to be called a Kaiser roll. But they called them Zemmels in those days. And anyway, we used to go 24th Street. We'd go at least once a week to the butcher shop, and when we were really young, we went to a butcher shop was called Beanstein and Lipman, and Mort Glass's father eventually bought them out, and of course it became Glasses, and then we used to either go there or we went to Diamonds, and Diamonds It's funny to say, but the thing I remember most about diamonds is my mother always bought meat to grind. She never bought ready ground hamburger. Why, I don't know, but she never did. She always bought meat to grind, and Mr. Diamond used to, it was a running joke between them. He'd say, Mrs. Cohen, everybody likes my hamburger. Why won't you buy my hamburger? And she'd tell him, because Mr. Mr. Diamond, as most people know, was also a mohel in those days. She'd say to him, because I'm afraid of your other business, Mr. Diamond. So that was their running joke. Every week that used to go on. And we'd go to Forbes Bakery, of course, or Adler's Bakery, or Forbes Bakery. And next door to Forbes Bakery, in those days, there was a door in between the two stores, was Mrs. Freed's Delicatessen. And we go in there, and I can't ever remember, can't ever find a smell like that again. It was make you salivate just to think of it. That the smell in the deli was unbelievable. And of course, with the fish markets were there. We used to have to go for live fish. Either the Flaxes on 24th and Hamilton we used to go, or Stoller's. I don't remember what street, but it was on 24th. And there was all those Jewish businesses. Or businesses owned by Jewish folks anyway on 24th Street that we used to go to.
Did you ever go into Adler's Delicatessen?
Adler's Deli, yes. And I hesitate to put on camera my experience with Adler's Deli. My grandfather, as I said before, was in the laundry business, and the old Mr. Adler was a customer. And he used to, and this was Depression time, and customers were few and far between and hard to come by, and you'd do anything you could to please a customer. And Mr. Adler used to be after my grandfather all the time. I see your daughter-in-law, meaning my mother, going into Freed's all the time. Never comes in here, and I'm a good customer of yours, and I'd like her to buy something here. So my grandfather persuaded my mother to go to Adler's Deli. So she didn't know what she was going to buy in there because, needless to say, to put it mildly, it was not the cleanest place in the world. Anyway, she went in there, and so she figured she'd get a herring. In those days, you get schmaltz herring, came in a big barrel with brine, and whoever the deli owner would fish the barrel the herring out of the barrel, out of the brine, and wrap it, and you'd take it home. Well, she asked for the herring, and Mr. Adler said okay, and went to get the herring, but before he went, he blew his nose with his two fingers and wiped his hand on his apron and reached in and got the herring out, and I thought my mother was going to faint right there, be sick right there on the floor. Took that herring home and threw it out and told my grandpa, if we starve to death, we're not going back there. But that's my memory of Adler's Deli. But in those years, you could, although we didn't live in what was called a Jewish neighborhood, you didn't have to go very far to be with where there were lots of Jews. So it was, then with grandparents on both sides, we grew up with Yiddishkeit in the house.
Tell me now, Bill, about going into the service.
Well, went in the service right from school in March of 1943. Went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas we got inducted actually at Fort Crook here in Omaha. Then a week later went to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas to get uniforms and get assigned and to wherever you're going and all of that. Went from there to Camp Roberts, California, where he took infantry basic training. And from Camp Roberts, California, got to come home. I was 18 years old, and we were in the first bunch, really, of 18, 19-year-olds to be drafted. Until that time, people were, it took a while to get to our age, you know. From basic training, got to come home for a week. Then went back to Camp Stoneman, California, which was like a staging area where they put people together to send overseas. And was there for quite a while, waiting to get assigned. And then from there got sent to Hawaii, Oahu, Schofield Barracks, on the island of Oahu, Hawaii Island. And was there for a little while in another kind of staging area. And then got assigned F Company, 106th Infantry, 27th Division. Guess you don't ever forget that kind of thing, those numbers anyway. And we trained in Hawaii for a few months, on Oahu and then on Maui and then back, and then we went down to the Marshall Islands, and from the Marshalls went back to Hawaii and got some more replacements, and then got sent to, it was an infantry outfit, a rifle company. Then got sent to Saipan, and was Saipan from whenever we got there, which was like L with landing day +4 or something like that. Was there till after the island was secured. And then we got sent to New Hebrides, an island called Espirito Santo, which we were there getting replacements again because we lost about half our company on Saipan. And got our replacements and trained there in the Hebrides for a few months because it took them that long to get enough people in so we could be effective again. Then we got sent to Okinawa, and was on Okinawa, again like L +2 or 3, something like that, until our battalion actually didn't have enough people left to be effective. And so we got pulled off and got sent across a channel. In those days, there was a channel between Okinawa and this island called Aishima, which is the island where Ernie Pyle, who was a pretty famous correspondent, got killed. And we were there as primarily guard duty on the airstrip and doing what they call patrols to clean out areas where the Japanese soldiers were hiding, and clean those out. And we were there when the war ended. Got sent back over to Okinawa and caught an airplane, and they flew us into Japan, you know. And I kind of eclipsed 3 years in a pretty quick span there, but it was 34 months, which is 3 years, and there was a lot of war there. Anyway, it was.
What were your impressions of being in Japan?
Well, when we went to Japan, we landed at a airstrip called Atsugi Airfield, which was between Tokyo and Yokohama, and walked to, I don't know how many miles it was, but it was quite a ways. Walked to what they called a replacement depot, Zama, and we were one of the first. We weren't the first outfit in there, but we were one of the first to get there. And it was pretty much desolation. You know, Yokohama and Japan, you could go for miles and see nothing but rubble. You know, it was bombed out. You know, it was really rubble. And then we were in this place for a day or two, and then they put us on a train. Took us, we went up north. The town we were in was right outside of it was old Japanese army barracks. The town was called Shibata. It was north on Honshu, and it was near. The town was small, but was near a town called Sendai, which was a bigger town. As you went, you know, through the countryside, it looked like a calm, peaceful, serene countryside. There wasn't a lot of damage there, and the people seemed kind of glad to see Americans. I don't know why, because you know they lost a lot of people to us, really. But anyway, they seemed glad to see Americans, and we were really treated pretty nice there. Was there for about 3 months. Got there when the war ended in August of '45. Got there within a week or two after the war ended, and was there until early December of '45 when I came home. And came home, came back to the United States. We sailed up the Columbia River, got off the ship in Portland, Oregon, and then they took us in trucks across to a place called Vancouver Barracks, Washington, where we were there about a week getting, because we really didn't have winter stuff, getting new uniforms, winter uniforms, and that kind of stuff, and getting processed. And then we got sent to, from there went to Fort Logan, Colorado, which is, I'm not sure, but it's in Denver, but I think it's near the center of Denver. I don't know if it's still an active fort or not, but anyway, it's there. And that's where we were discharged from, and came home 29th of December of '45, and 2 days before I was 21 years old, and was glad to be home. And my mother, of course, all of us were gone. My dad was in Europe, and I was in the Pacific, and my brother went in the Navy, and of course was in California, but all three of us were in service, and I was the first one to come to make it home. So my mother had been home and went through all those war years pretty much by herself, except for a time my grandmother came from South Omaha to stay with my mother. So it was the generation before us had a lot tougher than we did, I think. You know, when you think about what they went through immigrating to this country, to making it through a severe depression, which we as kids, you know, we really didn't know how tough it was because everybody we knew was in the in the same boat. So we really didn't know how bad that was, but they made it, like I say, immigrated, made it through the Depression, then sweat out the war. With most people had some family in the war, and and got through. Anyway, then I came home and really wasn't ready to go to work yet, so I didn't really look for to go to work until my dad came home. I got home in December, and he came home in like February. Came home one day and said, "I got a job for you, and I think you better go to work." So I figured I better go to work, so I did, and went to work in his office at the, as a civilian in the finance office. But I didn't like that, so I worked there a few months and got a job at Continental Grain Company in downtown Omaha. Worked there for, I don't know how long it was over a year, and left that and went to work for in a wholesale hardware business, and worked in the office, and I could hear these people talking about how salesmen, that's really the job. They got it so easy. They really don't do much, and they get paid better than we do, and they do all these things better, and their time is their own, and I thought to myself, you got to be pretty dumb not to take advantage of that. So I went to see if I could become a salesman. So Mr. Barron said, "Well, yeah, when we get an opening, we'll give you a shot." So he did, and that's how I made my living from then. From then on, one way or another, in sales. So that was, you know,
How long did you
pretty
stay
good.
with them?
Uh, with Barron, I don't know. I suppose 4 or 5 years, and they decided to go out of business, which they did, and I went to work for as a salesman. Well, I went to work in the office first, waiting for a sales territory to open for Paxton Gallagher, which was at those years was a big wholesale hardware company, and I worked there 4 or 5 years. Drove them out of business too, and then went to work for a fella named Phil Lazar, who owned a company called Lazarwitz Hardware, which sold builders hardware. And I called on sold builders hardware, calling on contractors and architects and people who were building houses and whatever in those days, and until at a baseball game one day, a friend of mine, Maury Handelman, said, "Why don't you come to a baseball game with me? My uncle has got tickets." So went to the baseball game with him, and we were sitting there with his uncle, who was Max Breslow, and we got to talking, and anyway, he said he'd like to talk to me about going to work for him. So I went to work for him at City Glass Company as a salesman, calling on the insurance trade, selling on the idea of using City Glass for auto glass, and stayed there for 27 years, from salesman to everything in between, to not actually physical labor, but most things in between, till president of the company, and then that was the majority of my working career did some things part-time pretty much after that. But like most of it was connected with selling. So got married in 56 to Eileen. Well, Eileen moved to Omaha from, she was born in Atlantic City, New Jersey, and raised in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C., and then moved to Omaha because she had a brother, Al Goldstein, who lived here. And her folks and she moved here to be near her brother. And we met and got married in 1956. And we had 2 kids, Sherry, my oldest one, who lives in Houston, and Joni, my younger one, who lives in New York City. And when we got married in 56, and Eileen died in May of 99, and was 42, almost 43, well, about 42 and a half, I guess. Good years with good friends and family nearby, and you know, after Eileen died, I met Doris Quatek, and we've been married now for 2 years, and pretty happy. And Omaha's our home, and we like it here. You know?
Tell me about your 2 daughters, Bill.
Well, Sherry, my oldest, graduated from University of Minnesota in Minneapolis. Grew up, of course, here in Omaha. She was also born at Methodist Hospital on 38th and Cumming, only in a newer building, but that's where she was born to. And she went to school, grade school, and we lived in those years. We had we moved into a house that we built on 76 and Seward. We moved there 2 weeks before Sherry was born, and lived there for like 12 years. So Sherry went to Hillside School there, and Joni was born, but she only lived there, I think Joni was 4 when we moved from there. When we moved from there, so she never went to school there. But we belonged to Beth Israel Synagogue, and both kids went to Beth Israel Torah and to the community Jewish high school, and we belonged to Beth Israel, and I was president of Beth Israel in 77 and 78, and then we moved to build a house in an area called Deer Ridge, which was like 125th and Leavenworth, and built a house there, and the kids, Joni was in the first class at Columbia School, and in fact, when she started there in kindergarten, I had been telling Joni, because Joni was an active child, and I had been telling her, now when you're going to go to school, and you're going to have to behave when you go to school, or they're not going to let you go, they'll send you home, you know, you can't be messing around there. Okay, Dad, okay. Anyway, she went there, and the first day they're there, the building inspector came in, and there were wires hanging. The school wasn't finished, and there was stuff, and he wouldn't give them a certificate of occupancy, so they had to send all the kids home. So this was Joni's first day in school, and I came home from work, and how was school, Joni? She said, Dad, they sent me home, and I didn't even do anything. she was afraid I was really going to be upset with her. Anyhow, she went to Columbia all the way through, and Sherry, of course, and then they both went. Both, Sherry started at Crest Ridge, but she only went there 1 year, and then she went to Beveridge Junior High. Then Joni from Columbia School, they of course got involved in the busing thing, and she went to Horace Mann, which was an 8th grade center, I think it was called. Yeah. So she went to there, and they both went to and graduated from Burke. And Sherry, like I said, graduated from University of Minnesota, worked a couple years in Minneapolis for what was then Norwest Banks, and then moved to Houston, worked in banking there for a few years, and now works and seems to be happy working for a retail company called Crate and Barrel, which sells all types of housewares. Joni went to University of Arizona in Tucson for a couple years, and also spent one semester in London, at the University of London, which was some sort of extension of University of Arizona. And both kids were active in high school. I forgot all that part. Sherry was editor of the paper at Burke High School, and president of the French Club, and National Honor Society, and was a good student. And Joni was a cheerleader, and lettered on the swim team, and got by in school. So she was not the student that Sherry was, although I think Sherry just worked harder at the studies, and Joni worked harder at the extracurricular. So.
Where did Joni go after her 2 years in Arizona?
Then she moved to, she went to New York because she was going to go to a school called FIT, in New York Fashion Institute of Technology. And so she lived in New York and worked, for income. She worked mostly as a babysitter, and for nursery schools for pre-nursery kids, kind of, and going to school and all that sort of thing, and met a lady called Anna Winter, who was and still is editor-in-chief of Vogue magazine. And since Joni was interested in the fashion business, and Anna Winter knew that, got her connected, and Joni went to work for Vogue magazine, worked at Vogue for a number of years. Up there, went to work, which Vogue is owned by Condé Nast publishing company. And she went to work for another Condé Nast magazine called Allure. She started at Vogue as an assistant editor, accessories and shoes. She went to Allure as the editor of accessories and shoes. Left Allure and now freelances. I'm giving you terms that I don't really understand what these people do, but that's what she does. She's a stylist for a number of different magazines, only she's gone from, since it's freelance, she's no longer an editor, she's a stylist. I think it's mostly a difference in title, and now she does it for a number of magazines instead of just one. And seems to be happy at what she's doing. Neither girl has married, but they both seem happy, and if they're happy, I'm happy.
And you're proud of the two girls.
Oh, extremely. extremely. They both are hardworking, uh, good citizens.
Bill, is there any message you'd like to leave for your family?
For my family,
Yes.
I don't know. They should know that you know I love them, and you, unfortunately you don't get a real formal education in raising a family or handling a family. Uh, I know that they should know that I tried. It's not always easy to be a, a good husband, father, son, employee. But somehow you got to do all those things, and I tried, and I know I made mistakes along the way, but they were errors of love, not malicious. So
I'm sure.
yeah, so that's
Well, thank you very much, Bill, for sharing your life with me.
yeah.